It's another great day here on the channel, Not Being Woke. We have discussed this infusion of sports and politics several times on the channel over the past couple of months. My regular viewers, you guys know where I stand on this issue. But if you're new to the channel, just let me briefly explain. The NFL, the NBA, the players, I don't feel like they have any business involving themselves in political and social issues. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, they have the freedom of speech. Of course they do. But just because you have freedom of speech, it doesn't mean you have to always use it. We have had freedom of speech in America for hundreds of years. And just because you have it, you have the right to express your opinion. It doesn't mean it's always wise for you to do so. The smart professional athletes, they know how and when to use it. Did you guys see The Last Dance, the 10-part documentary series that ESPN did on Michael Jordan? There was a part in the documentary that it just briefly touched on politics. It was the late 80s, early 90s, before Jordan had even won his first championship. North Carolina had a candidate running for Senate. He would have been the first African American senator elected in North Carolina. The Democratic Party, some in the mainstream media, they were pressuring Michael Jordan to publicly endorse him. The media pressure at the time was relentless. Obviously, it would have been a big deal to get the most popular athlete on the planet to endorse you. But Michael Jordan flat out refused. You know what his reason was? He said Republicans buy shoes too. Basically, he was saying, it's not worth it to alienate half of my fans or my audience over a politician. In the short term, Michael Jordan, he took a lot of heat, a lot of criticism for this. Mainly from politicians and the media, people who don't really count. How many politicians do you see walking around in Air Jordans? My guess would be none. But long term, it was one of the smartest decisions that Michael Jordan ever made. For one, it didn't alienate anyone. And two, it set a precedent for the rest of his career. And really a precedent for the entire NBA during that era because other players followed Jordan's lead. And the precedent was politics are off limits. Unfortunately, in 2020, the exact opposite is happening. LeBron James, the NBA's most popular star, is leading the social justice charge. It seems like every day, instead of hearing about what's going on the court, we're hearing from sports media and NBA players about what's going on in the streets. Turn on ESPN. Social justice. Undisputed with Shannon Sharpe and Skip Bayless. Social justice. Twitter accounts from NBA players. Social justice. It is killing the NBA. I'll even go a step further. LeBron James right now is killing the NBA. If you don't believe me, check this out. Game 2 on Sunday night, Nuggets-Lakers, drew a pitiful 3.2 million viewers, down 60% from Game 2 last year. It was the lowest watched conference finals game since 2003. I thought LeBron James was the NBA's biggest draw. Well, Game 3 between Celtics and Heat, just the day before Game 2 between the Nuggets and Lakers, Celtics and Heat were down 38%, but it was watched by nearly 4 million people. So nearly 1 million people that tuned in for Celtics Heat decided that they just weren't interested in watching LeBron James 24 hours later. What makes this even more interesting, there aren't any mainstream stars in Boston or Miami. Jimmy Butler, he's a big name in NBA circles, same with Jason Tatum. But go ask your mom or your sister who Jimmy Butler is or who Jason Tatum is. They're going to say, who in the hell is that? But ask your mom or your sister about LeBron James. They'll know exactly who LeBron James is. And this isn't the first time that this has happened this year either, where a series featuring LeBron James has been watched by less people than another NBA playoff series happening at the same time. Which makes me come to the conclusion that people are purposefully tuning out of games featuring LeBron James. I've told you guys from the beginning that the NFL was going to be okay because the audience for the NFL is just too big. And they have the gambling and the fantasy football aspect going for them. But the biggest reason, there's a big difference between the woke NFL and the woke NBA. We're not constantly being hit with a woke barrage from the NFL or its players. In post-game press conferences after NFL games, the players and the coaches, they're not talking about social justice. They're talking about the game. And guess what? NFL ratings have actually rebounded a bit from last weekend, week 1. Thursday night, Browns-Bengals, up slightly over 2019. The 1 p.m. games on Fox, they were up 11%. Monday Night Football, up 32% over last year. I think part of the reason for the rebound has to do with the fact that during NFL games, we're not being beaten over the head with politics. I'm not hearing Joe Buck talk about justice for Breonna Taylor, something that I've heard on the broadcast during the NBA playoffs. The NFL is just not as political at this point as the NBA. And you know what? Let's get to Breonna Taylor real quick. What happened to her was terrible. But just like with most cases like this, we don't know the real truth. You have one side claiming that the cops were right in their actions, and the other side claiming that it was murder. Look, I actually think that the dude that was in the apartment with her, was it her boyfriend? I think he had every right to shoot and defend his house. If you have someone beating on your door at 3 o'clock in the morning, what are you going to do? Oh, but they announced themselves. They said they were police. I don't care. How do you know that they're really cops and not someone claiming to be cops trying to rob you? Now, at the same time, once the police heard gunfire and one of them got shot, I think they were completely justified in returning fire. Same question. If you were that cop, what would you do in that situation? Honestly, the thing that makes it so sad with Breonna Taylor is the situation could have been avoided altogether. To me, it would be safer for police to not kick in doors at 3 o'clock in the morning on low-level criminal warrants. It seems to me it would be easier and safer to just stake the place out and wait for your suspect or perp or whatever you call it to leave the house or the apartment and take them down then. But I'm not a cop, so what do I know? They know the situation and how to handle it better than I do. It's just a thought. What I do know is the majority of NBA and NFL fans, they don't care what guys like LeBron James or other current or former NBA players think about the situation. LeBron went on a Twitter tirade Wednesday night about the injustice. Then we've got Jalen Rose on ESPN pushing for an arrest of the cops in the case. But no one has been as outright ridiculous about this than Mark Jones. My God, I have never seen anything as ridiculous than the tweets ESPN's Mark Jones posted to his Twitter account the other day. He said that going forward, he was going to refuse police protection when working college football games because he doesn't want to sign his own death warrant. Never mind the fact that Mark Jones' Twitter account is full of praise for the police in the past, and he has pictures with police officers because they recovered an item that was missing from him some time ago. I don't know. But all of a sudden, because of something that happened to someone else, he disregards his own personal experience with police officers and insinuates that all cops want to kill him because of his skin tone. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it. I have a feeling Mark Jones is going to get his wish. You don't want police protection? I'm sure the cops are fine with that. Ask the mayor of Portland how that worked out for him. When you get threatened or when some lunatic wants to attack you because you're a public figure, I hope you have your own gun. I hope you know how to use it. Don't call the damn cops because you don't want them. See, I don't mind Mark Jones expressing his opinion, but he's part of the problem. The Breonna Taylor case is a great example of why we do actually need some police reform. Now, I'm not saying defunding. Notice I said some police reform. 3 a.m. SWAT team warrants kicking in someone's door is just dangerous for everyone involved, I think. But that message gets lost because of people like Mark Jones. Instead of talking about reform or change or whatever, we're sitting here talking about his asinine comments. People aren't even listening to the point he's trying to make, which I don't know what point he's trying to make, but people aren't listening to people that are making valid points on the issue, because every time someone like Mark Jones makes comments like this, the real message just gets lost in the shuffle. And when did ESPN become CNN? When did ESPN become a political network? I don't tune into ESPN. Well, I just don't tune into ESPN anymore because of this very reason. But I don't watch ESPN to hear former NBA players or college football commentators preach to me about racial injustice. I mentioned earlier the comment that Michael Jordan made about Republicans buying shoes too. And I've said before that LeBron James is going to be the first face of any professional sports league that is going to leave the league in worse shape than it was in when he entered, because of his relentless promotion of politics. Check this out. There was a Harris poll conducted recently. The poll found that the NBA was viewed as the most political league of any sport, and the most one-sided. Just 34% of Republicans actively follow the NBA, compared to 48% of Democrats. Now, that 14-point gap is the largest of any sports league. For comparison, 51% of Republicans actively watch the NFL, and 54% of Democrats do. But it gets better. 39% of NBA fans have said they have quit watching because it's become too political. In terms of people who identify as Republican only, 57% of them said they've quit watching the NBA because of politics. What I don't understand, Adam Silver, LeBron James, the other players, they see the television ratings. They see the impact that social justice politics is having on the NBA. And they just continue to dig the hole deeper. It's almost like they're trying to convince the few viewers they have left to join their side. But all they're doing is driving more and more people away. If you want my completely honest opinion, I think the NBA's screwed. The boycott last month, I think that was the final straw for a lot of fans. Many people already find modern NBA players to be unrelatable. The boycott of playoff games just cemented that belief. I've always been a defender of the NBA. I love the NBA. When people would criticize the league as being soft compared to what it was in the Jordan era, I would always come back with, the NBA is more exciting now in some ways because of the high-powered offenses and the three-point shooters. When people would say that the NBA doesn't have any exciting star players, I would just rattle off a list of a ton of them. Or another one, the league doesn't have any balance, it's too predictable. I'd explain why the NBA is as balanced as it's ever been, because you have superstar players not only in major markets, but you also have a lot of superstar players in smaller markets. But right now, the NBA is indefensible. If you are a diehard NBA fan, you tell me, how do you defend the league right now? They are literally digging their own grave. The ratings for the playoffs, they can't get much lower than they are right now. Usually, in normal times, I'm not one to make a big deal over television ratings. When the NFL ratings were down for the Colin Kaepernick situation several years ago, I didn't think it was a big deal. The league would bounce back, and they did, and they're bouncing back right now. But the NBA's ratings, they're not just down. They are way, way down. I mentioned this last weekend. There are NBA playoff games being watched by less people than fake wrestling. I believe it was Game 6 of the Nuggets-Clippers series. Only 1.3 million people watched it. NBA regular season games draw bigger numbers than that. And who will this impact the legacy of? LeBron James. He's going to be the fall guy for this, and some might say deservedly so. LeBron has been embracing social justice for years now, especially ever since Donald Trump was elected. Nothing the NBA is doing makes sense from a business perspective. The product on the court is excellent. The playoffs have been phenomenal. But playing down in that bubble, it just doesn't feel like the NBA playoffs. Anthony Davis making that buzzer-beating shot against Denver in Game 2 the other night, with fans in attendance, that is automatically a classic NBA moment. Instead, the shot went in. I was excited for a second or two, but without the fans, the moment just is not the same. I don't see how the NBA recovers from this mess anytime soon, this political mess that they've gotten themselves in. LeBron James is not doing the league any favors. He is leaving the stars of the future a huge public relations mess to clean up. And the only young star in the league that I feel like might have a chance to return the NBA to prominence is Zion Williamson. So the future of the league could be dependent on the bad knees of a 20-year-old. Good luck with that. All right, that's all for today. Hit that like and subscribe button. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Leave me a comment in the section below. The NFL is going to be fine, but what do you guys think the NBA can do to recover? It appears they are not backing off of this social justice stance that they're in. Do you think the league is screwed going forward? Let me know your thoughts. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Have any questions or topic you'd like me to discuss, you can email me at BTLKC84@gmail.com. I'll see you guys next time.